Did you know that most women would rather talk about their own death than their finances? Well, we're here to change that. Welcome to Bixie Speak, where we speak honestly about money and share our personal stories of making it, losing it, and investing it. We focus on real-life situations that affect us, women, living in cities all around the world. From Bangkok to Bangalore, we're just out here trying to live our best lives. And to do that, we have got to turn our finances around from being obstacles to living our dreams to becoming opportunities to make our dreams a reality. In each episode, we tackle a typical life event in the lives of women all around the world and the role that money plays in either helping or harming our situations. We invite guests to share their experiences from mating and money to marriage and money to fertility in our finances, and we share tips, tools, and strategies that have helped us. Nothing is off limits. I'm your host, Rasali Gatau, CEO of Bixie, a financial platform aimed at helping women take control of their finances and live the life of their dreams. Disclaimer, Bixie and Bixie Speaks is not a financial advisor and does not provide financial advice. We are an education platform. So learn more about us and our community on www.mybixie.com or download the Bixie app on Apple Store or Google Play. Welcome to the wonderful world of Bixie. So let's get into it. Today we are tackling money and motherhood. Yay. Motherhood can be hard. Motherhood can also be amazing. A lot of your experience is dictated by how much money you throw at it. So today, we're going to be exploring how money impacts motherhood and conversely, how motherhood impacts money. We'll talk about the cost of raising kids, the returns on these darling investments, and how we navigate the most precious relationship with the most transactional. Our guest on this episode today is Kelly Rattanee. Kelly is a Canadian entrepreneur based in Bangkok, and she's also a single mother of two. How the hell does she do it? Well, we're here to find out. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the introduction. It's awesome to be here with you.
Thank you. So let's jump right in. So what role does money play in motherhood for you?
Goodness, it is the role.
Wow, that's a big statement.
It is. I think that, and you know, again, I'm not a financial advisor, so just to be clear. But, you know, I am a single mother, and I think that the reality is, whether it's motherhood or just life in general, like, life is harder when you don't have money. And that's maybe an unpopular opinion, but it's a reality. Like, money makes things easier. Money allows you to have more support where it's needed. It gives you more choice. It gives you more opportunity. And, you know, like you mentioned, children are amazing. And they also cost a lot of money, you know, from depending on the countries that you're in, whether you have free medical, whether that's paid, whether you're able to breastfeed, whether you have to formula feed, like it all comes into play. And I think it's really foolish to think that money and motherhood doesn't need to be a conversation that's had either well before motherhood becomes a choice or on the very onset of finding out that you are about to be a mother.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, that's such an important point. I feel like before people have kids, they're so busy with like a registry and random stuff, as opposed to what you really should be doing is looking at your budget, looking at your finances, going through the costing exercise of what the impact this is going to have on you. Because it is an enormous financial impact.
Absolutely.
I'm also a mother, for those of you who don't know. I'm a mother of...
and you're going to be another mother.
I'm going to be a lot of mother. I'm a mother currently of an 18-month-old, and I have twins on the way.
Yes, you do. Amen.
So that's, you know, I mean, from a financial point of view, and my husband is also helping to raise a kid, so that's obviously a huge, huge help. But to go from 0 to 1 and then from 1 to 3 is an enormous financial undertaking. Our household just went from 2 dinks, right? Double income, no kids, to like all these people.
Yes.
And they all have immediate needs. Diapers, okay.
Oh, Lord.
Diapers. People don't talk about diapers.
Man, those things are expensive, and you go through them like it's like you don't even know.
You don't even know. And my favorite is when like you just change a diaper and then they go get them. Like,
oh Lord. And like as a conscious individual, you're like, I'm not going to let you sit in that.
Right. Oh, and you know what? We're going to get into tips and strategies at the end of this talk, but like here is a teaser tip. On days, you know, those sale days, like 4/4, 3/3, 11/11 people, that is the day to go on your e-commerce provider. If it's Shopee, Lazada, Amazon, I don't care what it is.
Buy those diapers.
All the diapers. We're like, I have stacks and stacks that are bought on those specific days. But, you know, all of this to say that my husband and I, we've always had a marriage where we are very open about talking about money and planning for finances. And having children is a big part of it, is like whether or not you can afford to do it.
That's it.
And so we talked about that prior because, you know, we had to plan our family. Also a teaser. We will be discussing fertility and finances because I'm very intricately part of that discussion.
You're the expert.
Exactly. And so we had to really talk about our finances before we're even able to conceive. But it's such a huge part of motherhood and parenthood. And that's just the expenditures. We're not even getting into the converse question, which is the next question, which is the money coming in. How does motherhood impact the money coming in? So just to throw off, you know, there's stats all over the place about the gender income gap and how hugely exacerbated this is by deciding to have kids across, and it's across every industry, it's across every country. On average, when a woman has, just by the mere fact of getting pregnant, from the moment she gets pregnant, kind of outs herself in the employment setting, it takes on average 9 to 12 years to catch up to an equally placed man. So like, let's say her spouse, equally placed in their company, to be able to catch up if she is indeed ever able to catch up.
Yes.
So you take this huge, so you not only are you spending more, what's coming in is arguably much less. So I'd love to ask, like, how did becoming a mother impact like your income generating capabilities?
It's, you know, for me, I'm an entrepreneur, so it's a bit different because you are really essentially in charge of your own income generating activities. So I didn't work for a company. So from, you know, if you're employed in a company, you have to understand, like, what are your rights around maternity leave? When does that kick on? You know, if you end up needing to be on medical leave, like you're on bed rest, do you still get a salary during that time? Does it kick into your, you know, you have to have a really clear understanding about that. I also think too, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in a company, it is really worth investigating, ensuring that you have multiple streams of income.
100%.
That do not rely on you solely. Like we were just having this conversation earlier. Do you know what I mean? So for me, with my first child, when my daughter was born, we had a gym in Canada. So there was still an income coming in, even though like I still ended up having to go back to work after 10 days. That's a whole other story for a whole other time after an emergency C-section. So yeah, talk about wild times.
I'm there with you. Yeah, I went back to work 2 days after.
Pumping milk in your office, you know, but it absolutely has an impact, right? Because suddenly you're not able to generate money in the same way. The other reality is that not just, in terms of, you know, maybe stepping away from work or stepping away from your company for a shortened period of time. It's like you're sleep deprived. You're tired. Like you have 9,000 other things that need your attention and your care all of a sudden. Yeah. So like the pregnancy is one thing because, you know, if you're fortunate and you have a healthy pregnancy, technically, you know, in perfect land, you can work through your pregnancy up until you give birth.
And by the way, that truly is perfect land because in my pregnancies, I've not had that. And actually about 30% on average of pregnancies have complications that can impede your physical abilities. So even currently, right now, as we are recording this podcast, I'm technically on bed rest. I just have to be seated. I have to either be seated or be at an inclination, you know, and this is my reality for 4 months.
That's it.
And particularly, you know, I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a tech business. Bixie is you know, it's an application. I have to be running around, raising finances, building partnerships. And obviously being able to do that from the comfort of a wheelchair provides a significant kind of, I don't want to say it is necessarily an impediment, but you and I both know in the kind of worlds that we live in, to roll up to a meeting in a wheelchair is not the same, and say, this is why my company should be worth X amount of money, is not the same authoritative stance as strolling in your stilettos and your power suit. It's just absolutely not the same posture. And that really matters particularly when you're building a business, but it matters across any industry, right?
It. And even just as you touched on something there that's really important, it's like your ability to be taken seriously.
Yes.
Diminishes immediately as soon as people see that you're pregnant.
Immediately. I don't know what happens. Do they think we become like...
But they do. They think that your brain doesn't work properly. Yeah. They're scared that your boobs are going to explode.
And it's not just men.
No, it's women too.
It's women
everyone. It's everyone. And so, yeah, your ability to earn a living changes, drastically. So I would say definitely, like, whether you are an employee of a company or you are the founder of a company, whatever your role is and however you earn money, like, you want to make sure that you have as many ways to generate money. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's drop shipping. I don't care if you're selling Slinkies. Like, I don't care what you're selling, but you need to be doing something to ensure that you have an income that's just going to exist beyond you. Because I will tell you right now, kids are way more expensive than you think they are.
What do you mean?
They're just more, it's just more, you just don't really have any concept of it until you're going through packs of diapers every week or,
And like you said, the formula thing.
Yeah, formula. Like, I couldn't breastfeed.
A lot of women can't breastfeed.
I couldn't breastfeed.
Expensive.
That's like champagne, but it's not champagne. And you can't even keep it and sell it later as like a vintage year or something. Like, it's like no one's going to buy your formula from 2014, but they will buy your champagne from 2014.
You're so right. It's about, to be perfectly honest, it's about one can, which I think lasts, a week or two?
Yeah, it depends on your baby's.
It's about a bottle of really good champagne.
It is, but now it's just formula.
Popping bottles.
Popping bottles, but it's a different bottle. So it's, and just the reality is, like, you will, if you're really fortunate like yourself and you have a great partner who is, a financial contributor, and not just, financially, of course, but in the household and in co-parenting, like in the true sense of the word, then wonderful. But if you're not, you are it. And you need to really be prepared for the emotional roller coaster also that comes with missing out on moments in motherhood and missing out on money. Because sometimes you have to make that choice.
Jeez, that really hurt.
I know. Sorry. Everyone's crying. Sorry. But it's, you will have times where you have to miss moments in motherhood in order to kick on to that money. And people, look, there's a lot of...
So many.
And vice versa. Like, you'll have to miss out on moments of money to kick into motherhood.
100%.
And people, there's this kind of like this dangerous theme probably for the last, I don't know, it was probably like pre-COVID, where it's like, oh, just relax and the universe will provide for you. And it's just like... manifest.
Yeah, I'm like, stop.
Just journal it out. And it's just like, look... It's cute and all, but at the end of the day, like, if you're someone who's intentional about providing for your children and providing for yourself, and maybe that looks like generational wealth or ensuring that they have companies to inherit and so on, and which, by the way, I'm going to say, I don't usually say this, I don't usually like the word should, but like, you should be, because it's going to get more and more expensive to live. The job network, like the landscape of jobs and finances is going to be forever changing. So if you don't have things in place for your children, like, they're just going to be perpetually paying off student debts and blah, 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 right? So it's like, you do have this.
If I can just jump in right there, I think this is a big reason actually why we started Bixie. I was in exactly that situation. I had over $250,000 in student loan debt because
that's what you do.
Because that's what you do when you get an education. And despite the fact that, yes, I had, great careers, like the kind of careers that you think, oh, well, you should be doing well, because I was yoked down by this student debt. It was really, really challenging. And I had to, despite being like a lawyer, working at the UN, these jobs that you would think I should be fine, I had to one day sit down like a big girl in my mid-30s and come up with a strategy that outside of my salary that was going to get rid of this debt and help set just me up. I wasn't married and have kids.
No.
Just make sure I was going to be okay in the future. And when I started that journey, I realized I was like, there isn't, like, everything is everywhere. And I wish somebody just put everything together. And that's literally why I started Bixie. Because I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if somebody put like the knowledge part, the network part, the actual product part, like in one place, so then I could say, okay, cool. Because the point you're making is not just based on a feeling, Kelly. So I did my master's in economics. That one was on scholarship, by the way.
So that did not contribute to this debt load.
But there's a famous economist, his name is Thomas Piketty. Many of you might have heard of him. He wrote this biblical-sized book called Capital in the 21st Century. It's ginormous, but it can basically be summed up in one small point, which is capital currently makes more money than labor for the first time since the French Revolution, so over 200 years ago. Okay, so I'm going to say that really slowly because it's really important. Capital, your money sitting in a bank account, your house that you own, it makes more money over time than your two hands sitting in your office. So what that means, and so what Kelly is alluding to, this like get extra income, create a company. So this is popping up across social media. It's like side hustles. All of these are basically, they don't even know it, but it's actually pointing to that fact.
Yes.
Which is your job, unfortunately, because we're not boomers. Our job is not going to be enough to support us throughout our lives. And that's a really scary point. I'm technically a millennial. You are too. 26 to 41 are millennials, right? Like we grew up thinking, well, you get a good job and then like it's all going to be sorted. And the reality is there is probably not going to be a pension for you. There is probably not, like there's not going to be this other side where this is golden valley waiting for you because that's just not how the economy works anymore. So your point is super critical. And I say this a lot, but I think there's nothing more confronting to it than, and this is not a plug, you can go into the Bixi app and do what's called a Bixi number. We basically did a calculation and you input a couple of things and it will tell you how much money you need to live if you've never had to work another day in your life. Okay.
Oh Lord. Mine's like,
no, but like, so even if you're conservative, even if like, you know, some people are like living lavish.
Even if you're not Kelly.
Even if you're not Kelly, the number is much more sizable than you could think. So when we were actually devising this calculation, I was sitting at like the kitchen counter with my sister. And she's like, oh, I'm going to do it. And my sister's a brilliant attorney. She's wonderful. And she has dreams of, you know, I'm going to retire early and travel the world. And for her, retirement means 50, right? 50. Why not? Right? Why not? She's in her late 30s now. And so I was like, okay, well, calculate your Bixi number and tell me like, when do you think? And this is the amount of money that you need and that you have to save every month in order to hit that number by 50 so you can go and travel the world. And this poor woman, she puts the numbers in and she looks up and she's like, I think I need to get a second job. No, and like in all seriousness, okay? And this is, again, an attorney, court, like the kind of people that you think you're going to be fine. And then when you put the numbers actually into a calculator, it's not going to add up. And so in her future, she has to work till she's like 75 in order, because also remember, life expectancy has increased.
Yeah, we're going to live longer. So you have to be way richer, by the way.
Like that's like way longer, but you have no more labor years, right? So all of these factors have kind of come together to make it such that young people now, and why we're doing Bixi Speaks is like, you guys, if right now you're just sitting on a cushy job, I just have to tell you, it's just really not enough.
No, and it's probably not even really enough for right now.
That's terrible.
You know, realistically, like it's probably really not even enough right now. Like if you can't do the things that you really want to be doing, whatever that is, like it doesn't matter what that is, whether it's having children, whether it's renting a helicopter, like whatever it is that's going to make your soul sing. And by the way, like you're allowed to find happiness in material experiences and material things. Like I know we're not supposed to say that and whatever, but I
think there's a limit.
Yeah, I don't think don't go crazy. but if the reality is, it's like you can live a much more fulfilling, much more joyous life if you're not worried about your paycheck.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
So if you are, you know, maybe however old you are right now, and you have this cushy job and you have a pay that looks good on paper and you've got all these extra bonuses and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's like, it's probably really not even enough.
Yeah.
You know, and
it's
so
not.
Like, go out there and see, like the internet is such an amazing thing. You know, like you can make money doing anything right now and you simply have to just get out of your own way. You know, especially in motherhood, it's like, but I'm a mother, I can't do this. It's like, you can do whatever you want. Like whatever you want to do. As long as you know you're safe, it's consensual, all of those things, it's legal, ideally. But, you know, it's not going to be enough, you know, and depending on the country that you live in, like for us, we both live in Thailand. schools here are astronomical, astronomically expensive per term, per year. And that's 18 years. Like you are supporting that child from basically 2 years old until they're 18 years old to get their education. And then if they want to go on to university or whatever they want to do, you have to support that. Medical here is amazing, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
Right. Food is relatively inexpensive here, realistically, in comparison. But it's like, you are in it for the long run. Like, motherhood is the longest investment, time, energy, love, physically, financially, that you are ever going to have in your life. So you better have your shit together. Because when you do not have it together and you're scrambling all the time, it makes it really, really hard to enjoy the journey of motherhood. And there's going to be plenty of times where you are going to be pulling your hair out of your head as a mother. Ideally, financially, should not be one of those things that causes stress for you.
Yesterday, I was, we were actually, because we provide a lot of different content at Pixie, and I was writing a piece about money. And I opened with, they often say that if you want to know what God thinks about money, look at who he gives it to. That's meant to be like, oh, look at these horrible rich people. What that sentence fails to complete is, but also look at who she doesn't give it to. And so I think that the key is, and what Kelly's pointing out, like, no one's saying, oh, focus so much on money and sit in a room and count your piles. But there is also the converse of like, don't not be aware of what's happening. Absolutely. Like, we know statistically, the economic figure is, on average, in your average Western country, I think you need to, or not even Western country, the average across like OECD countries is you need to make at least I think it's like $65,000 or $70,000 a year. After that, the happiness generated from additional income doesn't increase manifold, right? That being said, adjust this for wherever you live. But what they're basically saying is like a middle class lifestyle where your basic needs, food, shelter, some entertainment, you're not worried about paycheck to paycheck. That can mean whatever it is and wherever you live, but that is the amount of money that you need to not be stressing, because as a mom, you have so much more to stress about. Yeah. You said a really important thing, though. You were like, motherhood is going to be the biggest investment you're ever going to make in your life.
Yes.
Can we talk about the return on that investment? Because and now I'm going to get into some trouble because
you can.
That's a big, not to be transactional. Of course, we love our kids. We're having kids for a purpose of having kids and, evolution, all that. But let me tell you about the upside of having a kid. When we are 75 and not working, I mean, ostensibly, as long as we're not horrible parents.
Yes. As long as our kids still like us after all of this and their therapist picks them back up and brushes them off.
And our lifestyle, our lifespans are like till 90. Someone's going to be taking care of us.
Yeah.
So I think like that's an irreplaceable ROI, especially if I have dementia or health issues. My grandmother on my Filipino side, she is currently 95 years old and she's fine. She's in great shape. Her kids, two of her kids live with her. The other two live around the corner. She is sorted. And you can see in her how she exists. Like, her brain is still functioning. She's super fine. And that's a huge ROI, especially because a lot of countries now, there's no social service system. Like,
no.
What are you going to do, honestly? And here's another reason why we started Bixie, because one of the big demographic shifts in our generation is women are getting married less and they're having no children.
Yes, because no one can afford to.
So what does that look like when you are 65?
That's it. And it's interesting, too, because this is a very so I grew up in Canada, and this is, of course, these are like broad terms, but in the wild, wild west, we're not taught to take care of our parents the same way, right? We don't witness that as much as you do in the Middle Eastern countries, the Eurasian countries, Southeast Asia, Africa. It's not common, right? Like, we ship them up. It's like, oh, you can't take care of yourself anymore. Cool. We'll pack you all up. We'll put you in this little box. You can live there. We'll come visit you on Sundays. And so
yikes!
It is. It's a different way of looking at motherhood. And for me, so like, the father of my children is Thai. So in Thai culture, it is very much that. It's like multi-generational living. Everyone cares for their parents. Like, no one really leaves far from home. And if they do, they go home all the time. And then there comes a point in time where someone will move back in with their parents to care for them long-term and so on and so forth. Whereas I never grew up with that model, right? Both of my grandparents lived in their own lives, had their own homes. No one took care of them. Do you know what I mean? We would go and see them on like Sunday or something like that. But it wasn't this integrated idea that like, oh, well, you took care of me. during the years that I need to do the most. And now when you need me, I'll take care of you. And
what happens to them? What happens if they like can't?
they go to like an old folks home,
Oh,
right? Or a care home, right? And a nurse takes care of them, or a crew of, not to be unkind.
What do you want?
Oh, I would love to be with my children.
Yeah.
I would love to be with my children. So it's knowing that you are investing this time, money, and energy into something that ideally, if you do it properly, and I mean properly, like from a place of like love and stability, and money comes into that. Stability, financial stability is essential as a mother. It allows you to be a more present mother. It allows you to relax. You know what I mean? It allows you to be fun instead of being worried about, the basic necessities, which, unfortunately is a reality for a lot of women. But it gives you the opportunity to also have conversations with your children about the importance of that. It's hard to have a conversation about money with children, from a place of lack.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's always like, we don't have enough for this, and this is why. And so they start growing up with this idea that like their resources are limited, their experiences are limited, and it's not your fault. Like the way the financial game is played is not in favor of motherhood yet. But you have the ability to change that, right? Like you don't have to wait for someone to give you a raise. You don't have to wait for these things anymore. Like I said, like look at how many people make money selling like, I don't know, reusable straws on Amazon. Like it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to, you don't always have to have like a purpose behind what you're doing, right? It's just like, look, my purpose is to get rich so that I can care for the people that I love. And that's a reality. Like money makes that easier. It also, when you have money, it makes it easier to teach about money, right? When you don't have it, because, it's always just, it's never enough. It's never enough. It's never enough. And then your kids develop that whole narrative themselves. And it doesn't mean being irresponsible or whatever, our new favorite word, responsibility. But it's simply just that, like, when you have something to show them other than stress and lack, it allows them to relax into the idea that there's enough for them, that they're okay, that they're safe, that they're not going to have to change schools, all these things. So I think that, motherhood is incredible. It is an investment and it can return to you, right? Like if you have the ability to send your children to, like let's say Harvard Law, for example, that's going to be a pretty big return. And whether you like
it depends how much student loans go into
that's it. That's it. But like it or not, the world appreciates pieces of paper from good institutions. And that's still how it is right now. Yeah. And that's most likely not going to change in certain elements anytime soon. And so you also want your children to have an appreciation for like what you're doing for them. It's like, look, like I gave birth to you, which is wild on its own. And like, I'm God just because of that. But
I should frankly be compensated. I really, truly believe I should be compensated for my gestation period.
I agree. But you want them to understand that like you as a mother are making certain sacrifices, not to make them feel bad or anything like that, but just so that they like have an awareness of like what you're going through. So if you don't ever have those conversations with them, or you're not willing to take chances and you're not willing to kind of go out on a limb to make sure that your family is provided for, it's hard for them to see you as someone who's like really working towards something for them.
You know what I really noticed? The main thing I noticed when I became a mom was I can say this is what I want for my daughter until my throat runs dry and my head blows up.
Yes.
But she is just going to do what she sees me doing.
That's exactly it.
The modeling, if I want her to be brave, I have to be brave.
Exactly.
If I want her to be, industrious, I have to be industrious. That's it. And that's the only thing I've seen that matters.
That's it.
I can say a million things. She's like, What she sees is what she does.
That's exactly it.
And I think what you just made a really interesting point about like, so money and motherhood, I almost feel like you're implying that making money is not just having it, but making it is in and of itself an important part of motherhood, because you're like modeling, this is where it comes from. So it's not, I guess money and motherhood is not just about like, having it, because you can just like fall into it, right?
Yeah.
But making it too, like showing what that relationship looks like.
And just showing the possibility, because at the end of the day, like you are capable of making money. Like if you have a computer or a phone, like, and a bank account, like you are capable of making money. And as we mentioned before, like if you're relying solely on your salary, it's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And especially for, we're both mothers of girls, but even for my son too, it's like, I want you to understand that like, if you want to do something, you have to be brave. You have to be willing to do these things, and they will give you a return.
Yeah.
Right. For me personally, like I never want to find myself sitting in a position where I'm just sitting back waiting for something to happen. Yeah. And I want my children to understand that too. And you're absolutely correct. Like I say a million things to my daughter. Trust me, for those of you that have kids, you're like a broken record. Like it's the same thing over and over and over and over. But at the end of the day, all that she's waiting to do is copy me.
Yes. Copy.
Yeah. Like to a T. To a T. You guys want a comedy show? Like come over to my house and watch me and my daughter kick around. Like, it's imperative that they understand that they have the ability to create the life that they want.
Yeah.
Whether that's in motherhood or not. And that also like all good work, like all work that you're pouring into will reap reward. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So for them, that's essential. Like when they go to school and they don't feel like doing a project, or they don't feel like showing up for their soccer/football game or whatever. It's just like, look, we don't all feel like showing up sometimes, but at the end of the day, if we don't
I know it.
It won't, right? Like if we don't show up for our money won't show up for us. If we don't show up for our kids, they won't show up for us. And money makes it a lot easier. Like, and look, it's not about being greedy. And I think that that's really kind of this old story that we've all bought into.
It's true.
It's like, oh, well, there is no such thing as too much money. And it's like, sorry, who are you? Like ask someone who doesn't have enough.
Yeah.
Or maybe you've been there, or maybe you're there right now. Like I've been in places where it's like, you're scraping by.
Yeah.
And it's like, I will gladly take I have too much than I don't have enough, because with money, you can do more things. You want your children to, for me, one of my biggest things for my children is not to create children that have no concept of the value of money or the value of work. But like, if my daughter decides that she wants to become a teacher and go teach in refugee camps.
Yeah.
I still want her to be able to have access to good healthcare, to good food, to safe housing. Like, so it's not even just about like luxury things or paying rent as a mother or your mortgage or whatever, but it's really like, what can you create financially so that your children have the opportunity to say, oh, actually, I don't want to go into finance. Even though I'm good at that, what I really want to do is art therapy for children who are fleeing whatever country to go to.
I had to make a lot of those decisions early on in my career because I didn't have any financial support from parents. So I had to just be like, okay, well,
what makes money? What am I good at?
What makes money? Exactly. And then so like my career is kind of the opposite of, I think, a lot of young people. Like I started off very much like finance attorney and then like moved away. Now I'm like entrepreneur, the next step is like artist, like rainbows and unicorns. Because I had to create enough financial stability to take on more and more risk.
That's it.
And I totally hear you on that. It's a tough one because I want my daughter to be able to, if she is, shows real skill and effort in being an amazing painter, she should pursue that. Yes. There is also $0 to be made painting. So is she going to be on the street?
She's like 70 or she dies. Like,
So I think this is a really good point that you're making. I think maybe part of what we need to do is like reframe. And I often do this with like a lot of what we do at Bixie, which is like, instead of just thinking about money, because it's such a taboo topic, a lot of people like talk about it. Yeah. It's like think about just like, what do you want from your life?
That's it.
Because money is nothing but a lubricant. To like get you what you want. It is nothing other than that. Right? So just ask yourself, like, how much lubricant do I need? Like,
lots.
Do I need lots? Do I need like a little bit? Like, it depends on your dream. Like if your dream is, I want to be like Marina Abramovich.
Yes.
I want to be a long durational performance artist. Okay, two things. You will make no money in your life.
None.
But it is extremely important work.
Yes.
So you need a lot of lube.
Yes.
But like if you want to like, if you're like, look, I just want to be the CEO of a finance bank, you don't need actually much. You can kind of grit by, get some student loan debt, pay it off. Like you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So it really depends on like, what is the life of your dreams and the reality of like living in a capitalist economy that rewards finance over, long durational art pieces that change people's lives.
Yes.
I mean,
true story.
Yeah.
But really.
Yeah, but really. So actually, I now want to ask this like $1 billion question, because this is one of the things that women always ask, like when it comes to mom and career and all this. Can we have it all, right? Like we were promised we were going to have it all. And I think a lot of us have fallen on the side of like, you can have it all, just not at the same time.
Yeah.
When it comes to mothering and motherhood, where do you lean? Can you have both?
I think,
Is it a constant trade-off?
You can have both.
Is the answer like to start, mommy businesses, which is also fine.
Yeah. But you can have both. It takes, a lot of like letting go of things that you thought motherhood meant. Because money the way that money operates hasn't changed in forever. Mm. It's not going to change. And yeah, there's crypto in it, but I don't mean that. But I mean what you said originally, or just right then. But like money is valued. Do you know what I mean? And you need money. Mm. So for me, one of the things that I had to really do was like get really honest about like, what does motherhood look like for me? Mm. Because motherhood is something that will vary from person to person, culture to culture, right? Whereas money realistically won't.
Wow, that's a big.
Everyone's like, what?
That's a big statement. Wow, you literally just said motherhood can evolve, but money doesn't.
No, because it doesn't. Like the way that money works doesn't really evolve, and even crypto. Like at the end, we're gonna have
to have a separate conversation about like existentially. Is that the right way that like our society wants to be organized? Like
probably not. Probably not. Realistically, but it's really like there's no sense in pretending that it's otherwise, because then you're just fooling yourself. Right? Like motherhood can evolve. So, it's worth, the first thing that you said, like, it's really worth sitting down and saying like, okay, this life that I want to live, how much does that life cost? And factor in your children, like what do they need to experience? What do I want them to do? I want them to go to horseback riding lessons, do what they need a Great Dane. My daughter needs both, apparently, a horse and a Great Dane all together. But it's like, and then for myself, like, what do I need financially to feel fulfilled so that I can be more present as a mother? Because there's nothing worse than going into motherhood where you feel resentful.
Oh my God.
About what you've had to give up. And look, you're going to have to give things up. Like but it's not your latte, by the way. Like it's, giving up your latte every day isn't going to make you $1 million. True story, right? So, man, these financial gurus, like, come on. Right? But your motherhood can evolve. It's simply a matter of you willing to let go of like this ego around being a good mother. Like, what does it mean to be a good mother? Does it mean that you are at every single, and maybe it does for you, like, and that's okay. This is the whole point of this conversation. But like having enough money that's not a negotiable, right? Mm-hmm. Like you either have enough money or you don't have enough money.
But is there a space where like, okay, if you want to be a great mother and you're like, it's fine if my daughter doesn't have like diapers, I can hand wash diapers, right? Like,
man, have you ever tried to hand wash a diaper?
I know. I know people out there, they do it.
Same. And good for you. So that's what I mean. Mm-hmm. Like, the financial part is a reality. Like that is generally not going to shift maybe within a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
Fine. But your role as a mother, like realistically, like look, your role as a mother is to provide, to protect, to nurture, to love, to feed your child. That's kind of it. All these other things are bonuses. The Montessori mattress, that's a bonus. And I'm not saying don't do your best, but like the reality is like maybe you have some inner work to do around what it means to be a good mother. Does it mean being perfect? Does it mean that you don't have bad days? Does it mean that your child has everything while you sacrifice, the things that you want to need? And for me, I had to, being a single mother brings on a whole other dynamic because you are it. Like you are the everything to those children. You're making all the decisions. So for me, I had to let go of this idea of being a good mother and focus more on being like a present and loving mother. Because then it took some of the pressure off of me to keep up with the Joneses in terms of motherhood, right? Like I had to stop reading mommy blogs. I had to stop.
Oh, I don't do any of that. That's just crazy.
I was like, good Lord, like I'm the worst, you get into this state, right? But you get to define motherhood for yourself. Finances to an extent, yes. Yeah. But at the end of the day, there's things that are fixed costs. There's things that you're going to need. You can't 1 month, if you decide that you don't want your daughter to go to ballet because she's not into it, cool. Yeah. But you can't decide 1 month that you're not going to pay your mortgage because you're like, you know what? I really need to focus on, my Montessori activities. And look, I'm not trying to dog Montessori. Montessori is a great thing. But I mean, we can get a bit fixed in the way that we view ourselves as mothers. Yeah. And the reality is the world is very, very different than it was when we were growing up, than when our mothers were growing up. So maybe what worked at that time from kind of a more regimented, institutionalized approach to motherhood and education doesn't work now anymore.
Yeah.
You know, but the reality is like money will always be a necessity. If you skip, you know, if you miss story time because you're tired because you had a webinar that you had to do, like your kid's not going to freak out.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So can you have it all? I think so. I think it just means that you have to be really honest with yourself about what that all is.
Redefining what all looks like. Mm-hmm. Yikes. Okay. So 3 tips for managing this money relationship and the children, mommy and motherhood. So I've heard a couple of things you've mentioned, like, you know, making sure that you are consciously thinking about money with motherhood. Like those 2 things should not be separate.
No.
They should be conscious, and you should ideally be thinking about it before the kids come out, but definitely on D-Day. Like there needs to be a financial plan. It includes budgeting. It includes like, you know, buying things at the right time at the right place. Yes. But like sticking our head in the sand when it comes to motherhood is really no longer an option.
No.
Like we've had podcasts about, for example, like mating and money. And a lot of people don't talk about money with their partners until it's like the wedding day.
Lord,
you know, like so,
day 3, people. Day 3.
So you can stick your head in the sand, I think, with a lot of life changes from mating, sometimes even marriage, but you can't do it with a kid because the kid's like, I need diapers, I need this.
I need food.
So I think the first step is get your head out of the sand. Yes. The second you find out you're pregnant,
that's it.
That's the moment. The second is like you have to have multiple income streams.
Yes.
I think that's the only way it's going to work. And what would be like your third tip? And I guess it's like prioritizing what does it look like to you?
Yeah, kind of that. Like prioritizing what does it look like to you, but then also like you're going to need way more help than you think. Like I don't care how badass you are. I don't care that you are a professional athlete. I don't care that you're like the VP of the top 3 Fortune 500. Like you are going to need way more help than you think. So this looks like outsourcing laundry. This looks like having your, you know, depending on the country that you live in. But like if you don't have a housekeeper, you're going to want a housekeeper. Like and if you have a housekeeper that comes once every 2 weeks, that woman is going to be all of a sudden at your door like every other day.
With some food.
With some food. You might need, you know, you might need to pay for grocery delivery. You might need to pay someone like, you know, especially for those of us that are expats in a country and you don't have that family unit around you. Do you know what I mean? Or even
if you do,
honestly, like, if you're paying someone to do something, I'll tell you right now, they're going to be more likely to do it properly than you're not paying. Right? And chances are you won't even have to ask them. Yeah. Right. So you're going to need way more help than you think. And at the end of the day, like those are all things that are alleviated with finances.
Absolutely. And I find that, and I've really noticed this is a huge difference. My friends, fellow mothers in Western countries versus in countries where we have affordable childcare, like nannies, etc. I mean, our stress levels are just so different. Like we get to enjoy being moms a lot more than they do because they're not just moms; they're cleaners, cookers, drivers, like
errand runners.
It's a lot. I'm like, that's like 6 jobs.
I have in one and you just had a baby and your boobs are leaking.
And as opposed to when you do have affordable help, it's and not price gouging help. Pay your workers, you know, like living wages.
Yes, don't be a dick.
But you know, you are able to actually have more motherhood enjoyable moments.
That's it.
Yeah,
and absolutely. Even enjoy moments for yourself too. Like in terms of even being able to make money.
Well, that's part of it being enjoyable. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I really want to thank you for coming on. We could have kept going. This is actually the longest podcast we've done so far, and I'm not at all surprised because Kelly, you are such an amazing storyteller and story spinner, and you have so many amazing experiences to share. So thank you so much for sharing. It's very insightful. There are some things I will be pulling from this conversation.
Maybe we'll do a round 2.
Exactly. But, okay, so I want to just note, don't worry about jotting all of Kelly's tips down. Today's podcast is going to be available on the app, and we also, with all of our podcasts, we provide reference materials because I think a lot of the insights that our guests have are golden, and so we put those separately in reference materials so you can still reference those. So download the Bixie app to get these reference materials to help you on your journey. The key is take action today. Join the Bixie movement, download the app, visit the website, join our weekly live events online. Like, do whatever you got to do to get that money. Because the best time to do something is always now. Please, I think my key takeaway from today is like, don't let another day, if you are a mommy out there and you're like, all I have is a job, like today is the day to think about another income stream. Like this is really the day for you. So please join us on our next episode of Bixie Speak, where we will be exploring a topic that is very near and dear to my heart, which is money and marriage. Thank you again, Kelly. I'm your host for Selling It Out, over and out.